They're there to get you excited. So how do you do that? You give them numbers that look good. Oh snap! Uh you got 58,000 per unit. The cap rate is 8.5%. Okay, what about the DSCR? What about all the other numbers? So those are really going to be those those really pivotal questions that you have to ask yourself before you want to decide that you want to move forward with a deal. For practice, would you recommend underwriting all deals on LoopNet, or would the lack of information be too difficult, or how would you recommend to practice? If I'm going on LoopNet, I don't have financials, but if I have an address, no financials, I'm going to go look at the property itself. I'm going to say, what is the market like? Let's just take, for example, I'm going to take multifamily home. Let's take 8700 Gulf Freeway. The first thing I would do is go on Google Maps, plug that in. I want to see what the neighborhood look like. That's the first thing. Once again, where's Walmart? Where's Walmart, Target, Starbucks? All right, I'm zooming out. I know it's loading. Oh, I see an airport. Walmart always pops up. The fact that I'm not seeing Walmart, that's a sign. Doesn't mean that it's not a place to invest, but it's a sign. Then I can go in and I can look at the area. I'm looking at it. I go down the street, looking at the neighborhood. When you start seeing, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but if you start seeing places boarded up, got plywood, graffiti, that's gonna be a no-go. I forgot why this deal was a no-go. I don't live in Houston, so I need to find a way to get my hands dirty and get into the neighborhood and definitely check, when was this image captured? It was captured April of 2006. So getting familiar, understanding what the area is, what's the crime rate, what, you, like I said, you can go into Google and you could go into the census. Doing that fundamental market analysis without any other information, you could still do that to see if this is even a property worth spending time on. Because when you get into the underwriting, depending on your process, you may be spending 15 to 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how deep you get, how complex the financials are. If I go back to this deal CRM, and like I said, this is not all of the deals that I underwritten. You want to get into underwriting, you want to learn how to underwrite the things that you can calculate by hand. You can calculate the price per unit. That's just going to be the asking price divided by the number of doors. So for the example that we used earlier, the one in DC, the OM that I pulled up, that we said it was 8.5, it probably is. You would literally just do that $8.5 million divided by that 63.
Yeah.
And the lower it is, I'm not going to say the better it is, but you can say whether it's better or it's not, depending on the market. And that just means that, how do we determine that? We just got to go and underwrite deals in that specific market. Because
Yeah.
we can come into Philly and say it's 98, and then I go to the next property, 95,000 per door. The next property, 90,000 per door. But if I go into Atlanta, $150,000 per door, $120,000 per door, two different markets. When we go back to that Philly example, that 98 is pretty. That's pretty average. I'm not saying that's what it is right now, but I'm just using that as an example. And then the other one that you can still calculate cap rate. That's your NOI divided by your asking price. And how you get your NOI is by doing your total income minus your expenses. Not the we're not even at the debt service yet. It's just income minus expenses. That's your cash flow. That's how you get the NOI. You use the NOI to get your cap rate by dividing it by your asking price. And then you get your DSCR. That's literally how I go through every single step. That's why I laid this out this way, because everything is dependent on preceding columns, except for the price per unit. But that's to get an understanding of the market. But I want to know what the price per unit is. That's important. I need the cap rate. In order for me to get the cap rate, I need the NOI and I need the asking price. And then I use that NOI. That NOI is very important because I need that to get the debt service ratio. And the debt service ratio is just your NOI divided by your annual debt service. So earlier we had a 500,000 and 500 NOI on the property that we use for as an example on the ETA in DC. And then we had a debt service of 42,400. We multiply that 42,400 by 12, and then we take that 520,000 divided by whatever 42,400 times 12 is, and we got that 1.02. So those are your really big key things. And based on what you want from the property, you want to be able to increase rent, because that's how you increase the quality of property and you can sell it for more. If rents are below market, you want to make sure you can include that. And then you also want to know what the neighborhood is like. Just like I showed you, I went into Google. I virtually drive around the neighborhood to see, okay, are there any boarded up houses, any boarded up stores? Is there any industrial spillover? It'll be like an industrial building. If you go to Detroit, you got mad industrial spillover. They're not making cars in Detroit like they were. So it spilled over. And unfortunately, it just looks deprivated. So that's essentially what industrial spillover it kind of means, is people live there because there was manufacturing businesses, industrial businesses that don't exist no more. And now the effects of that industrial building not being there, not having jobs, has spilled into the community. So, yeah.
Hey, Jameer,
And that's
you were
pretty.
talking about cap rate. I understand that it is important, but also on Craigslist of LoopNet, some people just exaggerate the cap rate. So I also remember Grant mentioned that you don't just determine, like, because like if it's developing zone, the cap rate would be higher, but then also that would mean the crime rate could also be higher. So you cannot just use cap rate to determine or to assume that it's going to be profitable.
Exactly. And even if the cap rate is lower, I have plenty of properties on this sheet where the cap rate, you can see it 5.63, 5.92, 4.92. That doesn't mean that the property is better either. That just means that the cap rate is just a number. It has nothing to do with the community. It has nothing to do with the quality of the property itself. I've These were no-goes. All of these ones that are in red where the cap rate is below 6, they were still no-goes. Because once I ran the numbers, it doesn't cash flow. It doesn't do what I'm looking for it to do. And on top of that, when you dig a little bit deeper, the neighborhood that it was in, it wasn't good. And you can't change the neighborhood just by buying a property. That property is going to end up in some way, shape, or form being a product of that neighborhood, unless you go in there and you have some type of clout to to make some changes in the neighborhood. So cap rate does not correlate to quality of the property. It literally just correlates between the NOI in regards to the asking price. But you will see Class A and Class B properties have lower cap rates anyway. But what I always do when I see an advertised cap rate, I'm decreasing that by a minimum of 0.5 right off the jump. Actually, I go, since I'm conservative, one, a whole percent. Reason being is because once we put that debt service into effect, the whole game changes. So we may get advertised. Oh yeah, everybody's like, oh yeah, I need to add a minimum of a 7 cap. Da 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 da. All right, cool. 7 cap. We run that equation. We put that debt service into place. Now we're down to a 6. And guess what? Once you run those numbers, if I send that to somebody, they're probably not going to take the deal because it's not going to cash flow the way that they wanted the cash flow. Because once again, it's all about it's the property's ability to cover the debt. That's what's most important because debt will get you in trouble. The rent is not going to get you, is not the thing that's going to get you in trouble. The neighborhood, I just hope you did your homework on the neighborhood. But the debt, no matter what class you want to, even if you want to invest in D classes, you can't cover the debt. You got to answer to the bank. And from my understanding, banks rule this world. You know, I don't think anybody wants to answer to a bank.
And could you enlighten us before you get into when we were very new and we like you didn't have any buyer. So how were you practicing underwriting?
This is a true story. I get up at between 4 and 4:30. I was taking that time to underwrite. I would just go on Crexy. I would download any OM that I could get a hold of, and I would plug it into the CRM all over the nation. Because the point of it was for me to get my reps in. I wanted to be able to look at a property and say, okay, what is the pattern? What is what are margin like with the cap rate situation when I said, okay, they can advertise the cap rate at this, but I'm going to subtract 1%. I was able to do that by getting these reps in because I saw a pattern. So the point of getting the reps in, just going in on Crexy, downloading the OM, because they I think they get notified when you download an OM. But if they don't, so what? You still go in, they got the financials, cool. Use the financials to get the information that I shared here. You may not be able to get all of the information. Like you see the rent increase column, some of those are blank. That's okay. The point of it is getting the reps in. Okay, so I'm seeing a pattern in Houston, Texas. I see that price per unit is this. I'm using the information from the OM. All I need is to know where it is, what the asking price is, how many doors, and what is it bringing in. That's all I need to know. I need to know those 4 things, and of course, it's address. But every property comes with an address, so that's a given. So I need 5 things: address, asking price, doors. If I can get it, I need the income. And those 4 things are the main things because you can underwrite any deal with those things. Like many said, I was getting my reps in before I had buyers, before I was on an acquisition team. And that was just me taking time every single day. I would not advise going at the speed that I was doing because I was probably underwriting. Like I think I underwrote like 100 in like 28 days. Like I was going in. Would I advise it? Absolutely not. I got burnt out afterwards. But yeah, that's how you get your practice in. So far as brokers feeling like you're wasting their time, like I said, it's a relationship game. You know, when I was first getting into it, the broker who called me about the 6 unit, I felt like I was breaking. I felt like I was wasting his time. Come to find out, no, I was being honest and I was checking in and I would give feedback. Hey, I'm not saying this isn't a good deal. This doesn't fit my buy box because of dot dot dot. Okay, this doesn't fit my buy box because of the crime rate. This doesn't fit my buy box because cap rate's too low. Doesn't fit my buy box because it doesn't cover my estimates for the debt. Whatever the case may be, all you're doing is you're just creating that relationship, keeping the communication open. You're probably going to get imposter syndrome. It could be very intimidating to be talking to brokers, people that you don't know, complete strangers, all of those things. You start getting in the habit of doing it though, you it will become second nature. You start remembering things that you can ask for, everything. Hey, hey, you don't go in asking for financials. This is a regular conversation. Hey, I came across this property. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Depending on the broker, they're going to say, well, what do you want to know? There you get stuck. Just ask them about the property. Ask them what's the seller's motivation. Uh, what do you think about the neighborhood? Make them talk. And it's once again, it's not about you making a decision. All you're doing is getting information. You're getting data, not just on the property, but you're getting data on the actual broker too. Whether you want to actually call this person. If this person is dry bone, I don't want to talk to you again. I'm gonna go talk to somebody else who's a little bit more lively.